Hi, hello. My name is Ermi, and today at Founders Grid, sponsored by Gaper, we have Mike Bosco. Hi, Mike.
Hey, good morning. Nice to be here.
Hey, yes, please. Thank you for coming. Could you give our viewers like a short introduction about yourself and what you do?
No, thanks. Again, my name is Mike Bosco. I'm the Vice President of Business Development for a company called Akima. We are a provider of talent to the federal government, ranging from technology to subject matter expertise, agile, sec DevOps, you name it. There, kind of a global company that provides services across the U.S. and in the world.
Interesting. Okay. So, do you guys have operations all around the world, or is it like only uh, North and South America?
Yeah, so I mean, we of course a lot of it in North America there, and then some overseas supporting government contracts and things like that. So I forget to count. I think we're in 14 different other countries right now. And then all over the U.S.
Ooh, 14 countries across the globe. That's a good number there. Okay then. So could you talk to us a bit more about, you mentioned staff augmentation, and my understanding is that last year we were hit with COVID-19. It's a pandemic and it hit globally. So how has staff augmentation or this industry in general changed with the COVID pandemic?
No, that's a great question. And I think as we all know, the world did change, on the pandemic, and it was definitely a change for us as well, and servicing our clients on in there because we operate kind of in a traditional model, where you send employees to a client site. We ourselves, had various different offices and so forth, and with the onset of the pandemic, that changed. So you saw a shift to ensure, public safety and so forth there. So companies like ours and others had to adapt. So we kind of went to a more remote environment. And I think you saw kind of the rise of here we are speaking on Zoom. You see the rise of
Yeah.
Microsoft Teams and so forth there. And I'll tell you what, we were a very traditional company of, hey, we like people in house. We have a beautiful headquarters just outside Dulles
Oh.
Airport, and that changed. We had to go remote. And fortunately, we were structured that we could be remote with VPNs and kind of the tools and
Hmm.
so forth there. But it was a cultural shift for both our clients and ourselves as an organization that traditionally operated with people on site.
Interesting. So for an organization that has workings around the world, which has probably a huge number of people employed, g- if one's a startup and one has to go remote, it's pretty easy working between a small team. Managing bigger teams or having a bigger company go remote, how was whoa, what were some immediate challenges which you guys faced?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll tell you what, we have clients that kind of face that same challenge there. And when you kind of operate on a culture where everybody's in the conference room or in the same building and so forth, and you can walk down the hall, it kind of, it's just the way that things were done. And then when you shift that to a remote, an online, a virtualized, apparatus, process and tools, have to kind of be there to kind of facilitate that. And one is the way to collaborate, and Zoom and like I said, MS Teams became kind of hugely important. I'll tell you the biggest change that I personally felt
Hmm.
seeing this is that the workforce shifted fairly well where it could shift. There's certain jobs you can't, do remote and so forth.
Yeah.
Even those have to be like there. But what I saw with my team and myself was we started working more hours, quite frankly, because you're shifting from
Oh.
one meeting immediately to the next meeting. Whereas if you looked in a virtualized environment or a physical environment, you can take a little break and go to the bathroom and this and that. And here is like you chalk your calendar up with meeting after meeting, and
Hmm.
so forth. You see kind of, I don't say it was a productivity thing, but it was something that we had to be careful of, like, hey, don't reach burnout. Don't try to do too much, too fast there. So that was the immediate impact we saw was, hey, people went virtual and you kind of, I don't know, double booked your calendar sometime in these
Yeah,
days. I don't
yeah.
know if you're feeling this, and some of the viewers here, like it's almost back to back sometimes. So I think everybody had to kind of learn that, okay, it's great to work remote, But the downside of it is you can kind of overbook yourself.
Yeah, true. Especially with the burnout situation, I've seen a lot of so in a situation like this where you're booking yourself again and again for meetings right after each other, taking a break, being a vice president, I assume, would be easier. You know, you can choose not to go to a meeting. But for employees who aren't at the managerial level, how do you think they like what were their coping mechanisms for making sure we don't burn out?
That's a great point. I think on that one, the same advice I give employees, same ones I take is you got to prioritize. You got to go, okay, what has to be done and accomplished right now, and so forth. And also be transparent in communication. Like, listen, I'm double booked. I can't make it to this. I'm going to shift to this. Or at the same time, one thing I stress to my people is like, take a lunch, please. Get up and walk around.
Mm.
Go for a walk. Go do something
Yeah.
on over there, because you can get into this, and you see the commitment of a workforce that like, hey, I got to continue to prove my value. And though it's not physically on site, I got to show results. So I think as a manager, it's important to go make sure that they're balancing there. And it's interesting with remote work. I've been working remote even before the pandemic, not full time, but having that option there. And it's really the work life integration, no longer a balancing more, it's an integration. There's certain needs that you have to want to take care of your family, and meet obligations with your kids and so forth there, and still produce for the company, the organization, kind of what you're doing there. So again, I think the work-life integration is key, pre-COVID, and now even more so what we're learning, through this pandemic right now, of how to maintain sanity and that balance. I'm all about ensuring that personal balance, and to my people that they maintain a balance as well.
You used the word work life integration, and the reason I really like that word is it's not so much about finding a balance, because some days you work more, some days you don't have enough work, but the point isn't to make sure you do 30% work, 30% fun, 30% sleep. The point is you make sure no aspect is left behind in the bigger picture. So I realized this when after say 1 month of working remotely, I was like, so my productivity was higher, but I realized that I went for a jog. I went for a jog after a month, and I could generally jog for say 2 to 3 kilometers, but on that day I could only jog for half. And I realized, whoa, sitting on a desk on a chair for a month really, what do you call, uh, atrophies your
Yeah.
muscles and everything, and it's a real
Yeah.
process which a lot of people just talk about. uh, 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 and I feel like a lot of people during the pandemic actually felt and experienced it
I think you're right. I think from
physically.
the
Yeah.
early stages of it that it became, but I'll tell you what, working remote can also provide that balance to where I'll tell you what, I'm a hiker, right? I live next to a
Oh, okay.
national park, and
Nice. Lucky.
I'll throw my earbuds in, grab my phone, and go for a 3 mile hike and listen to a podcast like this and just kind of unwind. And I'll tell you, you get that balance back where you kind of can sit back at your desk. Okay, let me refocus on the problem set. I like
Hmm.
the shower principle. Where you step away for a second and you get that aha moment and can come back to a problem, and and
Yeah.
kind of move forward with it there. So to pulling away from a project or a problem, and like you said, taking that time for you, and reaching that balance, I think is very, very important on over there. But you're exactly right. I felt the same thing. The first onset of the pandemic was like work, 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 and it literally, I think 2 months into it, I was like, okay, I'm gonna carve out an hour a day and I'm going for a hike. I'm gonna go
Yeah.
exercise. I'm gonna do this, and I know I felt personally better. And you can run more than that half kilometer there.
Hmm.
So I think that's it's hugely important to kind of ensure that we have to take care of ourselves and our employees. Make sure they understand that too. And kind of strike that balance.
100%. With the talk about employees, obviously we have employees that are seniors, that are like in their middle ages, and who are young professionals. In my experience, a lot of the young professionals, for them, moving remotely was not a huge deal. They were quickly able to pick up Zoom, MS meetings, and and all these integrations. But how has experience been for middle middle-aged individuals or people who are seniors?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think those are technology savvy kind of made
Yeah.
that shift fairly easy there. I don't think it was really a technology shift. What you're trying to say the middle age, the seniors, whatnot. It was a cultural shift. Value is seen as being in the office. If I'm not in the office, am I providing value on over there? Where I'm about results based there. And it's
Hmm.
okay to have some autonomy so long as the end state is met. So I think the technology is, it's fairly simplified on over there, but it was the cultural mindset of that workforce that you mentioned that kind of just the way they operated, and this next generation, I think remote work, and we're going to kind of come out of this, like it's expected now as
Hmm.
being a benefit, and hey, what's your remote work policy for a company and so forth there? Because I think this has changed the mindset of, do I have to be at an office? I also think from a talent acquisition side of it, it's very important as well that let's say we're in a certain geography, a city, whatnot there, and I'm searching for the right level of talent. Well, maybe it's not there, but if I open
Yeah.
my aperture, allow remote work, why can't somebody work in Montana and support the project, the team, the company, the organization, and so forth there? So I do think moving forward that this now generation of workforce is going to expect it. And culturally, companies are going to have to open their aperture. You're seeing that some companies are going away from physical presence
Yeah.
on there. And it's also a cost reduction, quite frankly. You're not holding a
Yeah.
fixed cost per facility
True.
in
Fixed
there.
costs are going down.
Yep.
So with this fixed costs going down, remote work being expected, another like another problem I'd say for employees is coming up about sick days. A lot of people, a lot of people have this idea that okay, if I get sick, if even if I have a slight flu, it's like it's not that I can't absolutely work, but it's very uncomfortable, or it grinds your gears to start thinking about productive work when you're trying to find a tissue and you're just not comfortable physically, but they still wouldn't take a sick day off because you're technically in your home, you're already at home, you are already comfortable. So in this situation, how do you see the policies for companies changing or not changing in the future?
Yeah, that's great. I think in the comforts of our homes, can we still be productive? And I think the answer
Yeah.
is yes. But this strikes that balance. Okay, if we're sick, do we need to listen to our bodies and rest, or do you feel well enough that you can pursue? And what's the company's policy kind of on that? I go back to again Mike's personal thoughts on
Mhm.
this is that if it's at the end state, and kind of what's the end goal and the productivity there, and not necessarily putting the expectation of you have to put in this many hours there. So, that's a great question there. And again, I think that if you're working remote, that gives you the opportunity that I can, take a partial sick day and rest up. And I'm feeling better at noon, and let me
Yeah,
see if I can bang out, some
exactly.
code or
That's what
some
I
of
thought
this and
about.
so forth on over there and be productive. And if that's driving to the end goal of the project and the expectation of the company, then great. I think that's a benefit for all. And we're not contributing to bring, illness into the workplace. As well, we all know the pandemic, we've all been very careful of that. But moving forward, globally, I think that's going to be a consideration. That they say now, hey, if you're sick, stay home with the flu or whatnot there, and that's keep everybody healthy and so forth there. So again, with the
Hmm.
technology we have now, I think we can be productive and be safe and not kind of pass illness, pandemic aside.
True. So, okay, my last question to you would be, Mike, you have been a CEO, you've been executive, you have had executive positions at companies, you've led a lot of teams. For managers, for CEOs, what advice would you give them for making sure their teams are doing well during these times and even after COVID? How would you advise those CEOs and managers?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it comes in clear two sides of the equation there. As a CEO of the company, you're all about growth, sustainable growth, and so forth there, and how do you deliver value on in there, and they have to leverage a workforce, whether it be physically or remote, on over there. And with that, there's an expectation of what the performance is to meet that end state of the goal. So that comes down to, if you're dealing with a remote workforce, what's the scope of work that's expected? And then you said the globally diverse team, people are doing pieces and parts. Managing a globally diverse team, pandemic aside, again, that's challenging. And you have to have an infrastructure that sets up there, and the checks and balances of, like, how often does the team report in? What's the project milestones? I'm all about an agile approach on over there, and ensure that the project is moving in line with the established timeline and so forth, because it's all about, again, delivering that value, that product, that service or whatnot to where it is. The flip side of that is the employees, the expectation on them that, hey, your contributions are important, and that being remote may seem like a luxury, but at the same time, there's a responsibility that's got to go with that. So it comes down to communication and expectation management on both sides. The company expects that we have to meet a milestone to deliver that product, service, whatnot, and the employees, you're a part of that. And the communication mechanism, whether it's Teams, Zoom, and the check-ins of how often and so forth, then working in a virtualized environment of SharePoint or, I don't know, Google Drive or something like that, it's aligning all that stuff. And then the project management side of it, of kind of like the tools that can be used. Those are the considerations on in there. And I like to keep it, very simple. It comes down to planning, process, and people are kind of, the most
Please.
important part to make those things kind of synchronize.
Well, those were the 3 Ps by Mike Bosco, everyone. Thank you so much, Mike, for being here.
No, thanks for having me. I enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.